Ladies and gentlemen, if you have been battling invisible barriers in your home, strange setbacks, unexpected financial dryness, or a heaviness you can't explain, then listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal is not just information. It is a spiritual wake-up call. There is a psalm, yes, a divine weapon, that destroys the spirit of poverty and shifts the atmosphere of an entire household. And before this message ends, something in your life is going to break. Stay with me, because the chains you cannot see are about to be shattered by the truth you're about to hear. Poverty is never born in the wallet. It is conceived in the unseen chambers of the mind long before it manifests in the physical world, shaping the way a person thinks, reacts, believes, and expects. When a person lives with the internal picture of limitation, even abundance around them becomes invisible because their inner lens only recognizes struggle. A poverty spirit is not simply the absence of money, it is the presence of fear, the acceptance of lack, the expectation that things will remain the same. This is why transformation begins on the inside, long before breakthroughs appear on the outside, because no one can rise above the image they hold of themselves. The psalm is not just a prayer. It is a spiritual recalibration that uproots the belief that you are unworthy of overflow. As the words enter your consciousness, they begin to rewire thought patterns that have kept you stuck in emotional survival. The more you speak it, the more your internal atmosphere shifts from desperation to divine confidence. What once felt impossible begins to feel inevitable as your mind aligns with spiritual abundance. The psalm becomes a key that unlocks faith, and faith becomes the force that destroys the poverty mindset. When the mind is imprisoned by images of lack, it naturally attracts more situations that match those expectations, because the inner world always becomes the architect of the outer experience. You cannot walk into prosperity while rehearsing thoughts of fear, doubt, and shortage inside your soul, because thought is the seed that materializes into circumstance. Speaking the psalm is a way of planting new seeds in the soil of your consciousness, seeds that carry the vibration of victory, sufficiency, and divine supply. Every verse breaks another brick in the mental wall that has separated you from your true inheritance, allowing light to enter places where darkness once ruled. When your inner dialogue begins to echo the promises of God rather than the memories of past failures, your emotional atmosphere transforms from heaviness into hope. What you meditate on becomes what you magnetize, and what you magnetize becomes the life you eventually live. This is why spiritual poverty dies the moment you stop agreeing with it mentally, even before financial change becomes visible. Your mind must arrive at the destination of abundance before your feet ever do, and the psalm becomes the vehicle that carries your thoughts there. Many people live in a cycle of limitation because they have unconsciously formed identity around struggle, believing that abundance belongs to others but not to them, and these silent inner conclusions shape every decision they make. The psalm challenges these hidden beliefs and confronts the emotional roots that have kept them tied to experiences of lack, reminding the soul that scarcity is not divine destiny. As you meditate on its words, you begin to see your value differently, your purpose differently, your future differently, because your spirit starts to remember that you were created for more than merely surviving each day. Poverty takes hold when a person stops imagining possibilities, but the psalm reignites imagination by feeding the mind images of increase, favor, and supernatural provision. When imagination is restored, creativity awakens, and creativity becomes the power that leads to new opportunities. Your life always expands to meet the size of your vision, and the psalm stretches your vision beyond the boundaries of past limitation. What once felt unreachable begins to rise within you as a new expectation, a new inner certainty, a new spiritual boldness. Transformation does not happen through effort alone. It happens through alignment with a higher truth, and the psalm brings the mind into alignment with divine possibility and spiritual authority. When you repeat its verses, you are not merely reciting words. You are reprogramming the subconscious patterns that once whispered, "You can't, you won't, you never will." The subconscious mind is powerful, accepting whatever it hears repeatedly, and for many, it has accepted the voice of poverty for far too long. The psalm becomes a new voice, stronger, louder, purer, speaking abundance into the hidden depths of your inner world. As this voice grows, it begins to override the internal scripts that have kept you living beneath your potential, shifting how you think, speak, and respond to life. Abundance begins as a spiritual awareness, a recognition that you are connected to a source that never runs dry. Once your mind embraces this truth, your decisions become bolder, your actions become clearer, and your environment begins to shift to match your new state of belief. A poverty spirit cannot survive in a mind filled with the word because divine truth suffocates the lies that once dominated your thoughts. Fear loses its grip when faith grows, and faith grows when the mind meditates on the promises spoken over your life. Every time you speak the psalm, you are challenging the limitations of yesterday and announcing to the universe that you are stepping into a new dimension of thought. Your expectations rise, your emotions stabilize, your decisions become stronger, and you begin to attract situations that align with your renewed inner power. Poverty is not destroyed by money. It is destroyed by mindset, by authority, by identity, by spiritual alignment. When the psalm saturates your thinking, your entire atmosphere changes, and as your atmosphere changes, your home becomes a place of blessing rather than a battlefield. The mind shifts from fear to faith, from doubt to expectancy, from limitation to divine expansion, and that shift becomes the foundation of lasting prosperity. Discipline is the invisible bridge that carries a person from desire to destiny, the silent force that transforms intention into manifestation. And without it, even the greatest dreams collapse under the weight of inconsistency. Many people pray for prosperity while maintaining habits that contradict the very abundance they seek, creating a spiritual conflict that weakens their authority. The human mind becomes divided when desires move in one direction, but actions move in another, creating inner tension that steals energy and clarity. Discipline is the act of bringing mind, body, and spirit into agreement with the future you are praying for, even when feelings resist. Every time you choose structure over impulse, you strengthen your spiritual capacity for increase and make room for divine opportunities. Undisciplined habits drain energy, diminish focus, and fragment purpose until a person feels spiritually empty and emotionally scattered. Disciplined habits, however, anchor the soul, sharpen perception, and elevate the inner being into higher levels of awareness. When discipline becomes a lifestyle, the doors of destiny begin to open effortlessly because alignment has replaced chaos. Prosperity is not an accident. It is a consequence of consistent choices that honor the future you envision. Your daily habits shape the energy that surrounds your life, either attracting breakthroughs or pushing them further away, because your routine is a declaration of what you truly believe about your worth. Every action you repeat becomes a message you send to your subconscious mind, and the subconscious responds by shaping your identity around your behaviors. When you maintain habits that drain motivation, consume focus, or weaken spiritual sensitivity, your inner world becomes cluttered with guilt, fatigue, and scattered intention. This internal clutter becomes the environment in which decisions are made, and decisions made from confusion never lead to prosperity. Discipline clears the fog, aligns your thoughts, and restores the inner order you need to hear divine direction clearly. With every disciplined choice, your mind grows stronger, your emotions become steadier, and your spirit becomes more receptive to the strategies God places in your heart. An undisciplined life creates delay, but a disciplined life accelerates destiny. Prosperity requires clarity, and clarity requires habits that elevate rather than habits that diminish. When your routine reflects your spiritual assignment, your life begins to move in the direction of purpose with unstoppable momentum. Many people sabotage their own prosperity by indulging in behaviors that offer temporary relief but long-term consequences, and the tragedy is they often do it unconsciously. These cycles of escape weaken confidence, deplete spiritual sensitivity, and convince the mind that progress is impossible. When a person loses discipline, they gradually lose belief in themselves, and when belief weakens, motivation collapses. The spirit of poverty thrives in places where self-respect is low, where time is wasted, and where impulses rule the day instead of purpose. Discipline restores dignity, rebuilds self-trust, and strengthens the inner authority needed to command prosperity. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you break the chains of self-sabotage and reinforce the truth that you are capable of more. Your daily discipline becomes a signal to heaven that you are ready for the next level, that you can be entrusted with greater responsibility and greater blessing. What you refuse to master eventually masters you, but what you boldly take control of will eventually obey you. Destiny responds to discipline because discipline is proof of readiness. Your future is being shaped in the small decisions you make when no one is watching, the quiet moments when you choose purpose over comfort and conviction over impulse. Discipline is not about punishment. It is about alignment with the highest expression of who you were created to be. Every strong destiny requires strong habits because greatness cannot be built on a foundation of inconsistency. When you eliminate habits that drain energy, you free up the spiritual power you need to pursue your calling. When you replace distraction with intention, the atmosphere around your life shifts into momentum and flow. Discipline sharpens your perception, so you can discern opportunities that undisciplined minds overlook and recognize doors that once seemed invisible. It strengthens emotional resilience, making you less reactive to fear and more responsive to purpose. The more disciplined you become, the more divine ideas rise within you, because a focused mind becomes a vessel God can pour strategy into. Discipline is the container that holds the blessings you pray for. A disciplined life becomes a magnet for prosperity because discipline produces consistency, and consistency creates results that compound over time. Every day you choose structure over impulse. You are planting seeds that will eventually bloom into breakthroughs. Spiritual authority grows when you master your habits, because self-mastery strengthens the voice of purpose inside you. Undisciplined habits blur your inner guidance, but disciplined habits amplify it until your decisions begin to align perfectly with divine timing. Prosperity requires the environment of order, and discipline builds that environment from the inside out. When your mind, body, and spirit operate in agreement, you become unstoppable because your actions begin to match the destiny spoken over your life. Discipline is the spiritual technology that transforms dreams into reality, visions into achievements, and prayers into tangible evidence. It is the key that unlocks consistency, the force that defeats inner chaos, and the bridge that carries you from intention into manifestation. The body, mind, and spirit were never meant to function as separate entities. They operate as a unified system, each influencing the other with undeniable force, shaping your destiny through harmony or conflict. When the mind is cluttered with anxiety or guilt, the body responds with fatigue, and the spirit becomes dimmed, unable to receive divine direction clearly. When the body is exhausted or weakened, the mind loses sharpness, and the spirit loses sensitivity, creating a cycle where clarity becomes distant and purpose seems harder to reach. True prosperity requires the alignment of these three dimensions because misalignment always leads to spiritual confusion and emotional instability. Your habits shape your internal balance, either fueling strength or draining vitality, either awakening spiritual power or dulling your awareness. When your behaviors become compulsive or excessive, the body becomes agitated, the mind becomes unfocused, and the spirit becomes heavy. People often underestimate how much physical habits can interrupt spiritual flow, not realizing that every action carries a vibration that affects the entire internal system. When the body is disciplined, the mind becomes focused, and the spirit becomes open to divine insight. Alignment is not accidental. It is created through intention and awareness. Your physical energy is directly connected to your spiritual sensitivity because the body is the vessel through which the spirit expresses itself and the mind interprets divine thoughts. A drained body creates a scattered mind, and a scattered mind creates a spiritually disconnected atmosphere where breakthrough becomes difficult to perceive. Many people pray for clarity while working against themselves through habits that exhaust the body and overstimulate the mind, creating emotional noise that blocks spiritual perception. When the body is calm, the mind becomes centered and the spirit becomes clear, allowing divine ideas to flow with ease. Prosperity requires discernment, and discernment requires inner stillness, which cannot exist when the body is constantly overwhelmed. When you choose behaviors that honor your physical health, you strengthen the channel through which spiritual wisdom flows, making it easier to recognize opportunities and hear inner guidance. Your body is not the enemy. It is a partner in your divine assignment, and when you care for it, you honor the destiny attached to your life. Alignment begins with awareness, understanding how every choice either strengthens or weakens your spiritual capacity. When the body functions in peace, the spirit rises in power. The mind is the bridge between the physical and the spiritual, interpreting experiences and shaping beliefs that either elevate your life or limit your potential. Thoughts carry enormous power, influencing how you respond to challenges, how you interpret opportunities, and how you frame your identity. A mind filled with negative cycles cannot hold the frequency of abundance because negativity drains creativity and blocks the flow of divine ideas. When you allow your mind to be consumed by guilt, shame, or compulsive habits, your spiritual clarity becomes distorted and your decisions lose direction. Mental discipline allows you to take authority over thoughts that weaken you, replacing them with patterns that strengthen your destiny. The psalm you speak becomes a spiritual cleansing for the mind, washing away the emotional residue left by old habits and past wounds. When the mind becomes clear, your perspective changes, your expectations rise, and your spirit becomes bold. The mind is powerful, but it needs guidance, and your spiritual connection provides that guidance when the mind is quiet enough to hear. Alignment requires a mind that is trained, focused, and receptive. The spirit is the highest part of your being, the place where divine wisdom, intuition, and purpose are birthed. But it can only rise when mind and body are functioning in harmony. When the spirit is strong, you feel guided, inspired, protected, and deeply connected to something greater than yourself. But when habits drain your energy or disrupt your emotional stability, your spiritual sensitivity becomes muffled, making it harder to recognize divine timing or understand the next step. The spirit needs a pure atmosphere to thrive, an environment where internal clutter has been cleared and distractions have been silenced. Every act of discipline strengthens the spirit because discipline creates order, and the spirit flourishes in order. The more aligned you become internally, the more you step into your purpose with confidence, knowing that every decision you make is guided by divine intelligence. Prosperity is spiritual before it is material, and the spirit must lead the body and mind, not the other way around. When the spirit rises, your life rises. Harmony between body, mind, and spirit creates a magnetic field that attracts opportunities, ideas, resources, and relationships that match your highest identity. Prosperity flows easily to a person whose inner world is aligned, because alignment produces clarity, clarity produces decisive action, and decisive action produces results. Misalignment produces confusion, confusion produces hesitation, and hesitation produces delay. Many people feel stuck not because destiny is far from them, but because their inner world is not synchronized enough to recognize the path. When your thoughts, emotions, and physical energy move in the same direction, you enter a state of flow where everything seems to align effortlessly. In this state, fear loses its grip, doubt loses its voice, and the poverty spirit loses its influence because abundance becomes your natural vibration. Aligning the body strengthens discipline, aligning the mind strengthens focus, and aligning the spirit strengthens purpose. When all three align, you become unstoppable, unshakable, and unbreakable, carrying the frequency of prosperity everywhere you go. When a psalm is spoken with intentional faith, it does more than echo into the air. It becomes a spiritual force that moves through the atmosphere of your home and breaks invisible patterns that have lingered for years. Words carry vibration, and divine words carry authority, shifting the unseen realm long before physical results appear. Many homes struggle under an atmosphere of heaviness, stagnation, or emotional exhaustion, without realizing that the environment itself has been shaped by years of fear, worry, and unspoken pain. When you speak the psalm, you release a frequency that cleanses the emotional residue of the past, restoring spiritual clarity where confusion once lived. The spirit of poverty thrives in environments filled with anxiety because fear invites limitation, but faith spoken aloud pushes fear out of the room. As the psalm fills your home, you can feel the tension break, the inner pressure loosen, and the atmosphere become lighter and more open. Your walls, your rooms, your atmosphere begin to carry the vibration of peace and possibility. The psalm resets the environment so your spirit can rise, your mind can focus, and your home becomes a dwelling place for abundance. Every time you speak the psalm, you are sending a spiritual decree into your home that breaks cycles running silently through your atmosphere. Cycles of lack, cycles of discouragement, cycles of delayed blessing, and cycles of inner conflict. Homes absorb the emotions of the people living within them, and when stress, financial fear, or generational patterns have lived in a house long enough, they begin to shape the emotional climate. But when the psalm is spoken with belief, it interrupts those patterns and fills the home with a new spiritual rhythm. You begin to notice that arguments lose their intensity, fears lose their grip, and old emotional wounds begin to loosen their influence. The word carries a cleansing power that purifies the very air you breathe, shifting the environment into one of restoration and growth. The psalm becomes a spiritual filter, removing the dust of old memories and the residue of generational limitation. When your home is spiritually clean, your decisions become clearer, your emotions become lighter, and your faith becomes stronger. This transformation happens from the inside out, reshaping the atmosphere of every room until peace becomes the dominant presence. As the psalm resonates through your home, it awakens dormant spiritual strength within you, reminding you that you are not a prisoner to past experiences or inherited struggles. Your home becomes a sanctuary where your spirit can breathe, where divine ideas can flow freely, and where your mind can rest without the weight of fear. Prosperity begins in environments where peace and expectation live together, and the psalm creates this environment by establishing spiritual order. When order is restored, the chaos that once drained your energy begins to dissolve, making space for clarity and creativity. Ideas that were once blocked by emotional heaviness begin to surface, and you start seeing possibilities where only obstacles existed before. The psalm doesn't just bring comfort, it activates spiritual intelligence that helps you recognize opportunities and make wiser decisions. As your inner world rises, your outer world begins to reflect that rise through open doors, connections, and unexpected blessings. The prosperity atmosphere begins as a vibration, becomes a mindset, and finally manifests as tangible increase. Speaking the psalm consistently begins to create a spiritual momentum in your home, one that pushes out the hidden patterns that once held you back and replaces them with patterns of increase. Consistency strengthens the atmosphere because repetition builds spiritual authority, and authority changes environments. Over time, your home becomes a place where blessings feel natural, where peace feels familiar, and where faith becomes the foundation of every decision. You may begin to notice small changes first. Your energy improves, your thoughts feel clearer, your sleep becomes deeper, and your heart becomes more hopeful. These small shifts accumulate until your home feels like a place of refuge, inspiration, and divine presence. The psalm transforms the emotional climate so deeply that even guests can feel the difference the moment they enter, sensing peace they cannot explain. This is the power of a spiritually charged environment, one that has been intentionally shaped by the Word. Prosperity thrives in atmospheres where faith is spoken, fear is silenced, and divine expectation is alive.